two of you.
My name is Jim Renner. I own a company called Intune DJ Service. So if you have any questions at the conclusion or at the end of the day, I'll be up here all night long and I'll be happy to assist. I prepared my presentation for twofold. One fold is, we've not hired a DJ yet. We don't know what to ask, who to look for, anything. And I've also we've already hired a DJ. So just by a show of hands so I know what direction to go and where to spend most time, who has already hired a DJ? So we have two brides, and we have a couple brides that have not hired a DJ. Okay, I think that's a yes. Obviously, you can follow along on the PowerPoint. We'll give you some ideas from here. So the first slide, I just want to kind of share some of the concepts, again, walking through the agenda. But on the next particular slide that's up, can you hit the space bar, please? Thank you. Now, the first thing, this is the aspect for if you've not hired not hired a disc jockey, experience. And the reason I stress experience is because, give you an example, I've been doing this now for over 25 years. In the past 10 years, I would tell you the quantity of DJs are probably 5 to 6 times than they were 10 years ago. That's because of the ease of access to music. So one of the things to express is experience. Is communicating with the disc jockey about his or her experience on the quantity of weddings they've been at and some examples, because as was communicated earlier, they're there to help through the whole process. And again, being able to supply ideas to kind of go through the area of the aspect. May not be worried as many quantity of years as you may have a DJ that could be doing 30 to 40 weddings in a year, and may have been doing it for only 5 or 6 years compared to a DJ who only works one weekend a month, but he's been doing it for 20 years. So it's a balancing act, and when you communicate with them, you'll determine what's best for you. One of the areas I really like to stress is making sure you have an agreement. An agreement, essentially a contract. It's very important to have a contract because this is a binding agreement between two parties, first and foremost, to make sure he or she is going to be there for your big day. I do get calls last minute, and I really feel for the bride, and I typically say on their agreement, do they have a phone number, do they have an address, and normally the response is, it was just a handshake. So it's really important to make sure you have an agreement. It's primarily for your protection. Also, making sure that the DJ is insured. If they have an agreement, most likely they will have insurance. And the reason we stress this is this has been a trend we've noticed in the past 10 years. There are some venues that, for example, we can't even set foot in unless there's an insurance accord on file that we have liability insurance. A particular venue, to remain nameless, opened that about 10 years ago. I know the venue, they recommend us. I asked them, I go, what happened? And she shared a story of they've had an inexperienced Uncle Bill DJ who decided to play at the volume that he felt was best, which was 2 to 3 times louder than any other DJ should be playing at. The venue asked him to turn it down. The bride asked him to turn it down. He refused. At the end of the night, a woman came up to the venue owner and asked if she was the owner. She goes, yes. How can I help you? She goes, well, I cannot hear out of my right ear because the DJ was so loud. I'm going to sue you if my hearing doesn't come back. So this venue talked with their attorney, and their attorney recommended require all businesses to have insurance. That means if they're taking time to get insurance, they're professional. They know what they're doing. It's not a fly-by-the-night. The other aspect which we really stress a lot is equipment. And this is not something, be worried about what brands they carry or anything, but making sure that it's professional equipment. Same thing that like a rock and roll band would use. And also ask about backup equipment on site. For example, I travel with a 5x8 trailer. I use about half the equipment for a wedding. The other half is just backup. Literally within 5 minutes, if we had a challenge or a problem, it's rendered because everything is redundant and backed up. So that's very important to make sure. The other aspect is what we're getting a lot of questions about when brides are calling, about are you comfortable talking on the microphone? Which quite a few years ago when I first started getting this question, I was like, yeah, that's the DJ's job. Well, come to find out what I had found at many of the brides that had encountered DJs that had a laptop that had 10,000 songs in it, and all they could do is play music. They couldn't make announcements, but they had 10,000 songs on their laptop. So really making sure the disc jockey is comfortable using a microphone, can act as a master of ceremonies, and making sure that he or she understands that this is your wedding, not his performance. The spotlight is on you, not the DJ. But acting as an MC is something that should stay important. My last area, or a couple more slides to talk about for people who need a DJ, is control. Unless the disc jockey is doing this for free, you control everything. You're writing the check, you're paying him. Meaning that dress code, what they're wearing, should be appropriate for a wedding. Do not assume that they're going to dress up. Years ago, I was at Summit Club. And at that point, the gentleman that ran the venue came up and told me, we just had a DJ here last weekend, black tie event. All the guests are in tuxedos. The DJ was in jeans and a T-shirt. And the venue said, would you like a restroom to go change? And the DJ goes, no, this is what I wear. So don't assume, make sure you communicate with them. Also, music, communicating about, do you control the music? This is something that we really like to say, it is your wedding, it is your day. Now the DJ, theoretically, he or she should know music, but they still should respect the fact that they wouldn't be there unless you were paying them, so making sure that you're playing their music. How loud or how soft? You control this too. At any point, you should be able to tell your DJ, please turn it down. Or just the opposite, please turn it up. Now, if he or she's invested in a very nice PA system, you should be fine. But it is an aspect of understanding that letting them know you control how loud or how soft. One of the other areas that I like to emphasize, in today's brides, we get tremendous amount of emails, tremendous amount of text messages. Nobody wants to talk on the phone. One of the things I would highly stress is after you've done your research, verbally communicate with the disc jockey. You may find he or she has a very obnoxious voice, and you may not want to hear those type of announcements at your wedding. Well, if you've only communicated them via email and text message, you'll never know this. Now, this also goes for your other wedding professionals. Within a 5-minute phone conversation, you can understand, do I want to work with this person? Do I want to pay this person? So this is something that we really emphasize, is speak to your DJs, because you get a good understanding of his or her personality if that's what you're looking for. Any questions about booking a DJ, as we're going to transition now into, if you've already got a DJ booked, now what? Any questions about booking a DJ? None? Okay. We're going to move on to the next slide that talks about if you've already booked a DJ. And some of this is going to correspond with some of the things I've already communicated, but it's really important that you establish to every wedding professional, you are the client. You're going to get what you want. This is my day. The example I like to give when I communicate with bride and grooms, that unless it's being done for you for free, you're paying for this. You're going to get what you want. So definitely establish up front, I am the client. And I have had brides across the years that have established that, and that's exceptional because then I know what their expectations are. So communicate in advance. Do not make assumptions, but establish that you are the client. The other avenue is music expectations. Some disc jockeys will carry a song list and provide that to you in advance. Then you can pre-select music. Some DJs will suggest that, you pick 50%, I'll pick 50%. There's other DJs that I've known that don't even take song lists. They just play what they want. Again, this is something you're going to need to determine through your pre-qualification process of figuring out if this is the best DJ for you, but making sure you've communicated with him or her in advance of what your music expectations are, because you know your friends, you know your family. Now, he or she may know music that will get them dancing, but it's important that you communicate through what your expectations are. As I like to say, I thrive on low expectations. Meaning, if it's something that I understand what your needs are, it's very easy for me to exceed those. And that's always our goals as wedding professionals. The other aspect we always like to share is that once you have retained your disc jockey, if anything changes, please communicate with them as soon as you know, whether it be an email, text message, or voicemail. The times have changed. The venue has changed. Worst case scenario, the date has changed. Most people can be very flexible on about everything except the date, because that's typically how we trigger everything is on that date. So please let the DJ know if something evolves. Quite a few years ago, I was booked to do a prom. I called and finalized everything with the coordinator. Everything's great. Day of the prom, I show up. It was down in Syracuse. Pull up at the venue. I walk in the venue, and the venue has no idea what I'm talking about. There's no prom here tonight. I'm starting to freak out. I then get in my car, and I drive around to local restaurants. I'm calling my client on the phone. Can't get a hold of my client on the phone. Stopping at local restaurants, seeing if I'm seeing people in tuxedos and formal gowns to say, where's this going to be? Finally, I get a call back from my client, and she goes, you don't think it's tonight, do you? I go, yeah, it's May 7th on my contract. She had a colorful adjective that flew out of her mouth at that time and said, we changed the date, but we didn't tell you. So it's very important, if anything major changes, to please communicate with all of your wedding professionals. Really, the last thing I'm going to talk about is pre-wedding planning. Now, this could be whether it be if you prefer to do a phone conversation or if you prefer doing a in-person. Majority of the consultations that we do, we call all of our clients typically the Sunday, Monday leading into the wedding. Now, if the client would prefer wanting to meet a month in advance, we're open to that. We're never going to tell her no. Also, if you want to do it in person, communicate that with your wedding professional. You're more of a people person. You want to finalize it in person. That's fine. Just make sure you communicate those expectations up front. Well, that's going to conclude from what I had together. Is there any questions or things that I can talk through? Excellent. Well, we're going to be transitioning the slides into Angie, and I believe Angie's coming up next. All right, she'll be coming up, and we'll get things going for her.